Jake was an ordinary boy living in a small town, but life for him felt anything but ordinary. Every day seemed like a struggle. At school, his grades were average at best. In sports, he was always the last one picked. And when it came to confidence, well, he didn't have much of that either. The kids at school often made fun of him when he stumbled over his words in class. Teachers gave him that familiar, disappointed look when he couldn't answer questions. Even at home, his younger sister excelled in everything: music, art, studies, while Jake felt like he was falling behind in every way. One afternoon, after getting yet another poor grade on a math test, Jake sat alone in his room. He stared at the paper with red marks all over it. His eyes burned with tears. He felt defeated, like no matter how hard he tried, he would never be good enough. His mother noticed his silence. She knocked softly on the door and walked in. "Jake?" she asked gently. "What's wrong, honey?" Jake held up the test without a word. His mother took the paper, looked at it for a moment, and then sat beside him on the bed. "Is this why you're so upset?" she asked softly. Jake nodded. "I try so hard, Mom, but it's like nothing ever works. I'm not smart like the other kids. I'm not good at sports. I'm not good at anything." His mother smiled sadly and brushed his hair back. "That's not true, Jake. You are good at something. You just haven't found it yet." "But what if I never do?" he whispered. That's when his mother told him a story. "When I was your age, I felt the same way," she began. "I wasn't the smartest in my class. I wasn't the most talented, and I failed more times than I could count. I remember one time I wanted to enter a speech competition, but I was so scared. I practiced for weeks, but when the day came, I froze on stage. Everyone laughed at me. I ran off crying." Jake looked up at his mother, surprised. He had never heard this story before. "What did you do?" he asked. "I wanted to give up," she admitted. "But my own mother, your grandmother, told me something I never forgot. She said, 'Failure isn't the end. It's just a stepping stone. The only real failure is when you stop trying.' And so, I kept trying. I entered the competition the next year, and I lost again. But I didn't stop. The year after that, I won second place. And finally, the year after that, I won." Jake listened, his eyes wide. "Every success story starts with failure, Jake. The difference between those who succeed and those who don't is simple. The ones who succeed never give up." "But what if I keep failing?" he asked. "Then you keep learning," his mother said. "Every failure teaches you something new. Every mistake makes you stronger, if you let it. But you have to believe in yourself first, because if you don't, who will?" That night, Jake thought a lot about what his mother had said. The next day, when he got another math assignment, he didn't avoid it like he usually did. Instead, he worked harder. He stayed up late, practicing problems until he started to understand them. When the next test came, Jake still didn't get an A, but he did better. And for the first time in a long time, he felt proud. Over the months, Jake kept going. He studied harder, asked questions when he didn't understand, and stopped being afraid of making mistakes. And slowly, things started to change. One day, his teacher called him up in front of the class. Jake felt his old fear rise, but he remembered his mother's words. He took a deep breath and answered the question. And he got it right. His classmates clapped, and his teacher smiled. "Great job, Jake," she said. At that moment, Jake realized something important. Success wasn't about being the best right away. It was about trying, even when things were hard. It was about believing in yourself when no one else did. That night, he hugged his mother tightly. "Thank you," he whispered. "For what?" she asked. "For teaching me how to believe in myself." His mother smiled. "I always believed in you, Jake. I was just waiting for you to see it too." And from that day on, Jake never stopped trying. because he knew that every failure was just one step closer to success.